Hey guys, it's Thursday, so you know what time it is. It's time for On Social, and we've got a great show for you today. And before we get to the content at hand, I want to introduce the co-hosts with. We got Mr. Marty McPadden from PodJam.tv. Welcome.
Hello, Stephen. How are you?
I feel like this is Groundhog's Day. Like we seem to do this every week. We welcome it. I don't know. It's just how I've always done this, and I started just thinking about it. I'm like, why should we do that, right?
Creatures of habit.
Yeah, I think we need to get over that. So I will say we have in his humble studio, we've got Mr. Jeffrey Fitzgerald from Jeff and High Def TV. Welcome.
Hey, gang. Always good to be back in the mix of things here.
So we've got a really cool subject to talk about, right? With everything that's going on, people always want to do some really crazy stuff, right? With their video, they want to look like they're in $1 million studios. They want to make it look like they've spent so much money on their video, when in actuality they want to do what you guys are doing and using a green screen and chroma key. And people have actually asked you, Jeff, and they've asked Marty. They said, how do you guys make that green screen look so good? I mean, how long did it take you to perfect that?
Oh, I think that would, yeah, when you ask that, I'm thinking about the days of when I was using DV cameras in bad lighting, trying to make it key, and I was frustrated because I couldn't get the crystal clear outlines and things like that. But a lot of it was the fact that I didn't have things set in a more systematic way where it stayed the same. And anytime you're moving gear around, you're always going to have problems. But it took a little while to really kind of figure it out. And then as the technology got better, our webcams today are much more sophisticated in terms of their color resolution and, the better DSLRs. The technology is so much better now that it's almost like you have to intentionally work to really get a bad chroma key if you're not careful. And so it's been a process, but I think we're all learning that it can definitely be done even from home or office. So
Yeah, and Marty, you've perfected your chroma key. People always like the way yours looks.
Yes, and I must confess, I think probably Jeff has probably a more complete and proper setup than I currently do now. I'm kind of cheating a little bit, and I have two lights up there. I have some back lights, and it's kind of jerry rigged now. I have a green screen. My green screen I put up every time I'm doing a show, and I can fold it up, so it's not a permanent installation. But at some point, I'm gonna have time to actually do it the right way. But I get away with it, and I'm using Wirecast to get the green screen. It does a pretty good job. I'm able to just enough to get away with it. But
Hmm.
but as you said, it can really present a nice professional appearance. And I know Jeff, you're going to go into it in detail as far as the kind of the options that it gives you to present your content.
yeah, and but the cool thing about what you just said is that you've got a system that's not like an established setup, and yet you're still able to make it work every week, and that's just getting those fundamentals in place and going through it.
And I think what people don't realize too with Wirecast, it's so easy to accomplish a chroma key. In fact, Jeff, you're actually going to show us, you're going to walk us through in your studio right now and show us how it's done.
That's right. It is a difficult thing to get a great chroma key if you don't do the fundamental basics of it. Now here, I've got a different setup than a lot of folks. I've been in TV and online video for a number of years. So I've got a vibe that I like that news feel. In fact, I've tried to make it look just for me like a little bit of a news station. Got my teleprompter, my camera here, and I'm gonna take you. This is my bigger green screen here. It's a 12-foot by 12-foot fabric. The interesting tidbit about this is it actually has blue on the other side because video at one time actually used a lot of blue screen, and they still do. The color is not as important as what you're trying to put on it, that it contrasted. So you don't ever want to wear green on top of the green screen, blue on top of the blue screen, that kind of thing. So lighting is really the main thing that will kill your green screen or make it look great, followed by having wrinkles in your green fabric if you're using a fabric. So you can come over here with me. I've got this pulled very nicely. Every foot and a half there's grommets in here, and I've got it stretched. I've got down here, I'm pulling it with some stretchy cord and some brackets that I put in. But the whole idea is you do not want any wrinkles, because what you're telling the computer to do is to, wherever it sees that range of green, to remove that and put the video you want back there. But it can't do that if there's variances and there's dark shadows and there's big bubbles and things like that. So The other big part, as I mentioned, is lighting. So I've got 4 lights here in this room, and if you see what happens when I come all the way back into that first round of lighting, it gets to be problematic, doesn't it? It's one of these situations where you always want to be in front of your lights that are keying your background, that are putting a light on your background. So I've got a second row of lights up, and I've even got some marks down here so that I know where I want to stand, and it's just good to have a reminder there, because we're in the middle of trying to record. You don't know how many times you're going to be a little bit farther back, a little bit bigger. Sometimes it's a good thing to have a mark there. Let me show you what the live desk looks like. This is where I do the show. And this is a different setup, but the principles are exactly the same. This is actually a green paint, and it's not a Home Depot green paint. It's actually Roscoe green screen pigment green paint. It's actually sold from a number of different retailers like B&H Photo, and it makes a big difference. I tried doing the quick route and the cheap route. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I found this to work best for me. And you can see now the difference here is I am not very far off of this wall at all, and it makes it very challenging for lighting. So what I've done is I've got 2 brighter lights up top. These are Generate Essential Spectral Essential lights that you can find for $199. I've got 4 of them here. 2 of them here are lighting the back screen, and then down here below I've got the 2 that light the front, to light me the front portion of that. And by and large, this works really well. I have one backlight up here, just to add a little bit of dimension on the hair. You'd be amazed at what a backlight will do for you. You should always experiment with what that looks like. And then at this point, you're hoping to get that nice green even background so that you have the ability now to key it out in Wirecast. And I'm going to show you how to do that now.
So obviously back in Wirecast, I love the chroma key in Wirecast. It's actually one of the main reasons why I use it. That and the virtual camera are extremely important to me, because it does give us the ability to make ourselves look like we're somewhere else. And with nonverbal communication showing up in a Zoom room, you always are going to command the attention you're looking for if you're trying to market yourself. Just a number of great uses for it. But here on the top layer, I've got a layer source that is comprised of 2 elements. One is the green background and myself, and the other is a video that I shot a number of months ago of my room here, where I wanted to make it look like maybe I was a little bit farther away from all the gear. And what I'm going to do is just show you very quickly how easy it is to get a good chroma key in Wirecast. In the Shot Properties tabs, if we go to the little human, that's the chroma key properties. And for me, I am using a 4K Sony compact camera. It's a $2,800 camera. It is a broadcast, and so it's one of these things that for me, I'm able to get a very good key very quickly. When I click Use Chroma Key, you can see that immediately I get pretty much what I need on there. That's because it's the camera quality and its resolution and its clarity, all the things working together to make that key very easy to cut out for the software. If you're using a webcam, you can get a great key, but you've got to have that nice even lighting. You've got to have the ability to really get that contrast going between your background. I'm wearing blue and there's a green background, that kind of thing. But if you're having problems with it, and I do too at times, there is the first parameter here, key threshold. This is basically telling Wirecast, how closely do I stick to the color green you're telling me to look for? Do I need to widen that scope up a little below and a little above? And so if your chroma key starts looking a little faded, that's an indicator you can move the first key threshold back and forth a little bit. Black clip and white clip are basically designed that if you've got more black or white in a shot, you can move those upward, and it will help kind of preserve those darker or lighter areas without it becoming a keyed source as well. But very quickly, you can see you can get a really fine key within Wirecast, and chroma keying is not magic and science all at once. A lot of it is just a lot of understanding of the fundamentals. Your lighting needs to be nice and even. The background needs to be green and smooth and even, and those kind of things. And we're not even talking about the next step of this, which is if you're going to have a green screen, what do you want to do with it? If I want to do the beach background that I've done before, you know, I have to put my lights more on a single source to get a different look than the even lighting, that kind of thing. But guys, I hope this helps explain a little bit about what chroma key looks like and some of the just the real basic fundamentals of it. And I'm sure that the folks in the comments are picking up some of the things that I didn't address, because there are a number of resources in our community. And so you're going to learn from me and a lot of other folks here today, but hopefully this will help, right?
You know, Jeff, that was a tremendous walkthrough. I think you really covered how easy it is in Wirecast to get a good chroma key. And we did have some comments. I don't know if you want to address them about the color picker. I know you kind of just showed point and click, but let's
Great.
also.
Yeah.
I want you to also talk about how we did this in the broadcast, so people understand how this is done and where they'll be able to get that video.
Yeah, two things. Number one, I intentionally wanted to keep it straightforward and simple for the basic framework of what you can do to, get your color where you want it to be and get the, the threshold set right. Those things. But that's exactly right. There are a number of things you can do. You can click on the, the color, pick the exact color with the, the color picker, those things, and it's one of these things where different people have different workflows. Some people like to do it that way. Some people, I know two or three people that want to put in an exact color, and things like that. And you can do that. But really, at the end of the day, it's about finding with that threshold where the green is that you're using and getting that to be as narrow as possible. And then you can use those black and white faders to really kind of dial that in a little bit. And what we've done here, obviously, you guys could, see that I was in the room showing this off. For the sake of today, to make this easy, the video was pre-recorded, and that is going to be part of a blog post on the Telestream Wirecast page, where you all can be able to watch that again if you want to see it, if you missed a part of it. I know there was a comment, maybe the audio was low when it first started. But yeah, I mean, chroma key is not supposed to be overly difficult in this day and age. There are a lot of people that want to overcomplicate it. They want to say, oh, you need all these things. I have a lot of stuff, but you guys got to remember, I'm coming from it from a different place. There's so many people in social media and especially live video now who are learning video, but that's not their first vocation. This has been mine since the age of 7. My mom was a TV producer and I grew up around all this stuff. So I've got a very different setup than a lot of folks, right? So this is kind of my tool shop. You don't have to have anything nearly this elaborate to get a great key. Marty is an excellent example of somebody who understands the professionalism of what you do to dial it in, and yet you don't have to have all of this stuff to do it. Don't let that be the thing that you think about. Oh, I gotta have a wall painted. At the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to know what you're going to do with that chroma key when you get it, so that you look good and you know how to light it, keep it even, and everything else should fall into place. But like I said, also I'm looking to the community there. A lot of great people who can share as to what they know about their experience with chroma key to make it better for everybody.
And while you're looking at that, Marty, I'd like to toss something your way. Um, Proper application for a green screen is very, very important. I think that understanding the type of background that you should use for your broadcast, your setup, whatever. What kind of insights do you have for that?
Yeah, a couple things on that. One, you want it to be complementary, right? So I see like this setup here, the background I'm using, it looks like I'm in a room with a brick wall, like kind of a loft area. And so it's complementary. You don't and all you want it to match what you're talking about, so it can add to it without being distracting. You want to, I guess complementary is the best word I could think of. So I think I've seen examples where people may get into this for the first time, and they're so enthralled with the technology and being able to do it that they don't necessarily pick the right image or the right background, and it ends up being that people look at the background or distracted with the background more than what they're paying attention to the content or the person's talking about. Uh, the other thing about this background that you'll notice is that it's not in focus, and that's done on purpose. I know we've gone through this before, the three of us. That's basically kind of an illusion. So it makes it look like it's a larger room. So right now, if I reach back, I can actually touch the background, my green screen back here. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you guys in on a little something. I'm going to back up my camera a little bit, and I got a robot, and show you that that's a very narrow green screen. You can see the picture there. I'm in a room. My room is not very it's not very clean. It's just whatever's in the frame there, but you can see outside the frame it looks like a mess. And inside the frame it's not a very wide green screen. It's actually a portable green screen I use. So if I bring the camera back, you can see there's the illusion, right? So that's one thing. And number two, like with the background being out of focus, it kind of mimics depth of field, where that it actually looks like a room. That if that picture was in focus, first of all, it'd kind of be all in one plane. It'd be kind of distracting. So being out of focus kind of takes the emphasis off the background, but you know it's there, and it also gives the illusion of depth, so that it's not like it's a flat surface. It almost looks like I'm in an actual room, which I'm not, and I just showed you why I'm not.
Right.
I'm in a much smaller room.
So they brought up an interesting point. If you move your head just a little bit to your right, people will see you have like a grid target right behind you. And I don't know if people understand, like if you move, you'll see it's like right behind you, just behind your head. See it on the window?
Oh,
A lot of
yes.
times these are on photos too, sometimes to put so you know where to line up on the green screen.
Yep.
Sometimes guys will add it to their photo so that their head hides it so they know that they're in the dead center of the screen. Um, so I don't know, Jeff. I don't know if you do that. I know you showed in the video that you actually put tape on the floor to know where you're supposed to stand, and I actually do that myself when I'm shooting, so people know. I'll put X's on the floor so they know where to stand and know, because if Marty doesn't have that point, he starts moving his hands out. If you've ever seen somebody do a poor green screen, all of a sudden their hand gets cut off. So having those markings on there is not a bad idea.
Yeah, and the hand cutting comes from cropping your video to a smaller margin than what the screen itself allows for. And yeah, that can happen. I've got a desk over here that sometimes the corner of it will be in play. We've got a lower that kind of covers it right now. But when I want to get rid of that, I'll crop in a little bit. But yeah, you're right. You start throwing your hands out, and all of a sudden you start losing body parts. That's something you always got to be kind of be aware of. And I think it's I think the tape is a good thing, and it's a good example of what it looks like to pre-plan what you're going to do so that you don't have to think about it when you're in that moment. It's the same thing whether we're all talking about making sure your audio mixers set the right way. The tape actually helps me because in the world that we're in, not so much in the bigger room, but where I'm at right now with the desk, if we're talking about really the span of a foot, right? If I go back by 1 foot, you can see how distant and how far away I become. And if I come in even 6 inches more, you can see how dramatically that changes the feel of that human to human contact. And so what I like to do is really kind of get a baseline measurement of where am I supposed to be. And that way, when I'm thinking about script or what I want to communicate, it's you kind of know where you're going to sit and you can sit there and deliver and be like, hey, this is what I'm really trying to communicate to you. And I hope this really makes a lot of sense. And now you're not thinking about some other thing that can throw you off and kind of mess up things. So yeah, a little bit of pre-planning always goes a long way.
Now, one thing that, I've heard from people is chroma key is very hokey. And I would agree with that unless you know how to make it work. And one of the things, Jeff, that you've done, you actually have a video here that I'm going to cut to where you show yourself and it looks like you're on a beach. So why don't you talk a little bit about that and how you distorted the light to make it look like you were on the beach?
Well, I think we want to say within reason, right? I mean, this is obviously by no means Hollywood level. It's really very I even think it's a little bit jerry-rigged even the way I did it. But what I did is I grouped my lights to get more of a big single source direction of what light would look like. I wanted to be a little overblown. You can see a little teeny bit. My hair I usually keep so stiff, you don't see it move, but I had a little fan going, trying to make it look like it was outside. The background's actually moving a little bit, even though it probably could have moved a little better. But the bigger takeaway here is that I'm trying to show that you can do something different with a chroma key than just putting yourself in another room that's meaningless and boring and doesn't have anything with it. And so the idea there was I was doing a video about this fantasy island I called Video Engageo, where everybody knows that video is the power of the internet and how 80% of traffic on the web today is video, and you need to be doing it. So it was kind of a marketing ploy, but I wanted to do it in a little bit different way. But that's one a good example, I think, of doing something maybe a little different with your chroma key and having some fun with it. Because what's the point of having a chroma key if you can't do anything cool, right?
Oh, absolutely. Marty's laughing because we were going to do that to
Can I add
you.
something to that? Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Let me just add something to that. Not only is Jeff a true video professional on the technical side, but obviously he's a good actor too. He can actually perform, and he performed like he's at the beach. But let me echo what Jeff is saying there. If you notice from what Jeff was, if you notice what Jeff was doing there, and Jeff, you pointed out some really key points there, is with the lighting, and you're making that kind of that high key light to kind of mimic the sun. If you're outside, that's the look you would get. It would be kind of blown out a little bit, and it would be mimicking that you're on bright sunlight. The other thing I think was brilliant is the fan. It's very subtle and very nuanced, but that's what you want. That's how, if you're going to be a professional, that's what you want. You don't want it to necessarily be you don't want people to just sit there and notice. Like, it's almost like when you go to a epic movie with a lot of special effects. They, people say if you notice the special effects, they've done a bad job. You want it to blend in, and that's exactly what Jeff did. Is he blended? He was very nuanced, blended it in, and overall, the whole scene is, oh yeah, it's very believable. He looks like he's outside, even though he's inside, because I could see it in your hair. You got the little fan going, so that would be a breeze, and then you got the lighting that it matches up with the background. So things like that, as you build up and as you get those backgrounds, and that goes along with what you're saying, Stephen, is that the hokiness of what a green screen can deliver, if you do it right, like that example there, you can really pull it off, you know?
Absolutely.
I think it's a good use case, and there are tells in it because if you saw it in the very beginning, or when I took the glasses off, I had multiple points of light in there because there were still multiple lights in a little group. You can see the squares and not the sunlight, but none of that matters. I actually had a couple friends and a couple clients write to me and wish me best wishes on my vacation when I put this out last year. So I think even though I didn't think it was the greatest thing in the world, at least it did something where people, I guess, scrolling through the cats and bacon were like, "Hey, Jeff's on vacation." So Chroma Key can do a great thing if you want to do it. You can do some amazing things. You can actually sit yourself next to yourself with pre-recorded video and have a conversation. You can sing. There's a million ways you can get creative because we all know in the world we're in now that you've got to do something more original if you're going to get noticed on the internet. You got to do something really amazing. So
Yeah, if you guys are just tuning in right now, we did a demonstration. We showed you how to get a great chroma key in Wirecast. It was a great tip that Jeff put out. The video, like he said, will be available later on YouTube, on the Telestream Wirecast YouTube, Vimeo, as well as our blog. So make sure you check that out. But if you missed it, go back and watch this episode after it's over. But we do want to take this opportunity right now to thank the folks over at Telestream. If you guys haven't done so, man, this is the time to get in on it. Wirecast is a phenomenal program, as we showed how great you can make your video look with Chroma Key. Head on over to the website, telestream.net/onsocial. Click on Wirecast. Go download a trial. You got Wirecast Studio and you've got Wirecast Pro. You can get in there, get on the baseline, get in there and start composing. Start making your video quality look fantastic. You can do some online meetings. You can bring in guests. You can do all kinds of really cool stuff. 3 boxes like we're doing right now. You can do double boxes. You can do double boxes like this. You can do really cool stuff with Wirecast. So all of us are using that, and we encourage you guys to go check it out. But Jeff, you have one other demonstration here that you're going to talk about. I believe it's football, right?
yeah, no, and again, these are just I pulled out a couple things that I thought had a really good look. I just wanted to make the point that the room you saw where I was standing up with the teleprompter, this is what I did with it in January 2018. This was a football kickoff show for a league that I work with that plays with no pads and helmets. A great league, the A7FL. You want to check them out. But this was the kickoff show, and so I built a virtual set in Cinema 4D, and I just thought it came off as a pretty good example of if you want to make something look bigger than what you would think, because who would have thought this was produced at a house next to the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia and that kind of thing, right? Again, these things are not necessarily the earth-shattering, NBC sports, but it's amazing how close you really can get when you try a little bit and you understand the power of using your green screen effectively and you understand the lighting. Like, this doesn't necessarily apply, I guess, at this level of the conversation, but I matched the lighting in my 3D set to kind of match what I had in the room so that it would look like it was the same. You don't want light coming from one direction on you, and yet the lighting in your photo is coming from the other side, because now it's really obvious to people that it doesn't match. And so that's where you flip that picture and maybe try and see if that helps. But those little things in aggregate, whether it's chroma key, audio, video, whatever they are, even your writing and your scripting, the little things you do when all put together really make your video stand out in ways people can't say why, but they go, that does have a different look and a different feel. It's at a different level. Chroma key is a great way to do that.
And David Brewer in the chat room, he said, remember people, test, test, test. And he's 100% right. We said that last week. When you've got features like this with Wirecast and, going through it, Jeff made it look so easy, but he also gave you the explanation. So there's a lot of things that can get involved. Wirecast can make green screening easy and chroma key easy, but if you don't have lights properly set, you can run into some problems. And somebody in the chat room even said about, you don't need a green screen, you can use a TV. Absolutely. So here's another little secret. Ta-da! I'm using an actual TV behind me with the same type of thing that Jeff and Marty were talking about. with the blurred background. So this is another camera angle that I have set up, but I have the TV purposely set. And a lot of people have asked, like, how do you get it with no glare? I'll tip it forward. I actually have
Hmm.
coasters underneath it, and I'll turn it. This TV is not sitting flat. It's actually it's slanted this way against the wall. You can kind of see by the angle up here, and it's actually leaning forward. I actually had to fasten it to the wall, otherwise it would probably fall off because I've got lights above me and I've got lights out in front of me. So to give you this look, you have to set it up, and it gives you the natural light at the top to make it look like it's lighting you up inside the virtual room that you're in. So there's techniques that you can use if you don't want to go green screen. Um, because I do so many different shows, and sometimes going to a wide shot, it doesn't work for me with a green screen. At least with the TV, I can change it up and kind of make it fit to what I need in Wirecast just by hitting the X keys button. So there's many ways that you can do that. As we stated, right? Be everywhere without going anywhere, right? So
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Steve, I'm going to find this video. Some of you may know about it. It's on YouTube. I got to find it. But there's a studio in LA that is using monitors that are the size of walls in a very small warehouse. I mean, I'm talking 15 or 20 foot. And they've got three of them in a U shape and one on top. And they have this $1 million camera system that is actually projecting on them in real time. So when the camera is moving across the motorcycle, the background is actually moving on the monitors the opposite way. And it really makes it possible to do things that look like you're outdoors. It's just a phenomenal video. And I'm going to find it. And I'll put it in the chat here after the show. But you can easily use a monitor, and it's a great way to do it if you want to have reliability and setup and you're in a closed space. If you got no room for lighting and a chroma key, that monitor is a great answer.
and maybe down the road, Marty, we can get a video of kind of behind the scenes where you're using two lights. Well, like Jeff said, a lot
Yep.
of people that aren't doing this for a living, they're setting up, tearing down, as you put it. Um, you're using two lights to make this happen, and you're getting the chroma key that you're getting. Now, you're not using a full size room one like Jeff was using, but you could still see you're getting a fantastic key.
Exactly. I mean, and again, it's even lighting, but yeah, I'll definitely have to show that because mine is a down and dirty approach. Jeff is at the higher level and, using the ceiling lights and all that. He's doing the proper way. I can show you my way where maybe someone just getting into it doesn't have a lot of equipment, can still, achieve pretty good results. The good news is, and I'll leave you with this, is today we have all these digital tools, and even the tools with the lights and the cameras and the backgrounds are not all that expensive when you really look at it. It's almost like, think of it as your tool chest if you're getting into woodworking or whatever. The key is that the tools themselves aren't that expensive. Learning how to use them, that's where the work is. So you can assemble these things with what you have, and again, start simple and then build your way up, like what Jeff was doing with that with the 4D set. I love, Jeff, how you did the camera turn, multiple cameras and all that. That's a very advanced look, and that's what's possible. I mean, the stuff that you're using is not necessarily out of bounds of the average person. It's not a high budget item. Where Jeff is succeeding is his knowledge and skill in how to use the tools. That's what takes the time.
Well,
If you put the time and effort to learn how to use the tools and techniques and experiment and learn what goes together, that's when you start achieving. That's when you can get and layer it on and get more advanced. But start simple, learn the fundamentals. Stephen, we talk about this all the time. The
Mhm.
fundamentals may not be all that interesting, they're kind of boring, but it's very, very important. Learn how things work. Like you were saying, learn how light works, learn, why you need to light a green screen, all that. So learn how it works. And then you're able to move from there. And then you're able to get more advanced because you know how the fundamentals work and know how to put it together.
I'm glad you brought that up. I want to touch on that real quick before we have to wrap. And Jeff, I'm going to kind of throw it
Mhm.
to you on this one. I want you to kind of explain because I do the same thing in the studio. I'm using all LED panel lights that are all the same Kelvin. They're not anything different as far as light color. And I know Marty, you're doing the same thing. I want you to kind of explain a little bit the purpose of that and how you even adjusted the lighting to get that beach look because I think people make the misunderstanding they get that orange look to themselves and they're like, besides white balance and all that, you can fix some of that, but mixing and matching lights is a bad idea.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a great question because you hear this term in the proper circles, color temperature. lighting has a hue to it. We all know that. We've seen the blue moon at night. We've seen the wonderful sunsets that are orange. Some of that's atmosphere, but some of it is the light itself. And on the spectrum, there are numbers that are assigned to that. 3200 is the more blue look, and when you get to 5600, it's the more orange look. And without knowing all the details, just understand that your lights can go either more white or more warm and go more yellow. And the lights that I showed in here have a dual set of lights in there. Some of them are the white, some of them are the orange. I like that warm look. I like to look a little bit more warm instead of what I would call almost the European news, which are very stoic and white, and it's just very clinical looking. And so I dial mine in a pretty much in between. I like to go around 4,000, which is kind of a little bit more than the norm there. But it's a situation where, like you're right, with lighting, if you're going to do a chroma key and you're trying to make the sunlight, you want to make that look nice and orange. You can either record it the way you normally record it and then go into a Premiere and then color it there a little bit. There's, after, post production kind of things you can do. But the color lighting does make a big part. It is a big part of the equation, because if you have white lighting on one side and that more yellow on the other, it's going to show in your face. And then when you try to fix it, you're going to either try to fix one half that makes the other half look weird. And takeaway is, it's always better to get it right the first time and then try to do something different with it than trying to do the effects. I don't like doing effects in the recording, because I would want to have that flat look first where I can know that I've got something I can work with and fix if it didn't work the way I wanted. So
I think in a future episode we'll have to see what we have on deck for next week's Wirecast tip. But I think even though it doesn't pertain necessarily to Wirecast, I think we need to do a white balancing understanding of how to do it. You can do it down and dirty with a piece of paper, or you can buy an actual white balance. I don't know what they call them, like a filter that you hold in front of it, like 2 or 3 inches away. But
they
I,
have a number of products, and
yeah,
and they're we've got great friends. Lee Love, I know, is watching. Good friend of mine, excellent photographer. He's a mentor. You got to check out his Facebook page. I mean, they in photography, they've even got 18% gray cards and
yep,
all these things. But at the end of the day, what you want to make sure is that the color white that you're in front of in the room, wherever you're recording, matches what white looks like in real life, so that they're not different. And that's where you get into that, that whole thing. But again, if you're using auto white balance, to me, that can be a bad thing too,
yep.
because it can switch on you when the sun changes from cloud to sun, and your color can change along with it. So there's a whole world of that we can talk about, and I know that the folks in the chat are experienced there, and they've got their own stories there too. So
Well, and Marty, with today's cameras, you can pretty much have it saved in the camera, the white balance and everything like that. So I'm pretty sure you just turn them on, kind of like I do. Unless something looks out of whack, you're good to go.
Yeah, my setup doesn't change. I don't move the one thing I do take down my green screen, but my lights stay the same and my camera stays up and my lights stay up. So I know the positioning and the distance and all that stuff and the profile settings and the camera stay the same. So I'm fortunate. I can usually just turn on the equipment and ready to go when I do my checks. I usually don't have to do that much adjustment. So that's another really key point, Stephen, that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Is that when you set up your studio, if you can keep your stuff set up the most that you can, and when you get it dialed in, you get it dialed in. If you can leave it set up, that's great, because it saves you a lot of time. If you have to take it down and put it up, that you end up having to redo the settings and all. The white balance can be a challenge. And also, if you can be in a room that you can control the lighting, if you're away from windows, like I'm a window over here on the side, and I close the shade so that I have full control of the lighting, because that'll affect the color temperature, especially if you're doing it at night versus day, and especially during the summer months when the sun angle's higher, and depending on how your windows are facing, south or north or whatever, it can affect the lighting and affect the color temperature. And so you don't have to do as much adjusting. So leave your stuff set up, get it dialed in, and then leave it alone. And you probably, especially if you do regular shows.
So, real quick, David Brewer in the chat room, he says, "My face is weird. How do I fix that?" Unfortunately, we don't have a solution for that. There's some things that are just out of our control. But we appreciate the humoristic comment to end this, guys. We really appreciate it.
well, Steve, real quick here, I just want to throw Shane Higgins is asking a great question. What are we using to bring in the multiple guests that we use every week that is super reliable and we love? It's Neural Net. You want to check them out. It's GNURAL. I think it's neuralnet.com,
Yep.
neuralnettv.com. if I got it right.
Yes.
But you want to look it up. It's a great piece of software.
Yeah, and it's something you can also put on your gearbox. So if you have one of the new revision gear units, the brand new Wirecast gear, I think Jeremy from Telestream, he's running it on his. So there's some great options. But Jeff, thank you so much for joining and doing that video. It's fantastic video. I think everybody enjoyed that, and I can't wait to see where we go next with this.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I mean, I hope it did help, in a moment. And if you're a business organization who are struggling and you want some help with that kind of thing, that's what I do professionally. You look me up at jeffandhighdef.tv. Would love to connect with you. I know we're in a moment where everyone is moving their strategy long term, not only short term, but long term into the live streaming movement, and that's where you want to be. So look forward to helping you.
Absolutely. And also want to thank Mr. Marty McPadden from podjam.tv. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Always my pleasure.
Make sure you guys go check out the Telestream YouTube channel. Go subscribe there, and you can get all these great videos. And like I said, if you came in here at the end of the show, you definitely want to go back and watch it. The video tutorial of Chroma Keying with Wirecast will be set separately up on the YouTube and Vimeo, so you can just watch that part if that's what you want to see. But I encourage you to go back and look at some of the examples that Jeff was kind enough to do for us. So you can see different ways that you can manipulate yourself on a green screen, blue screen, in front of a TV to make yourself look like you're somewhere else when you've never left home. Guys, we'll see you next week for more of On Social. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week.